Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Yan, alongside my partner, Jack McNicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. If you have a chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at JustSayingNoGWJS for article and video updates. And don't forget to check us out on Spotify at Just Saying Football, and get us there on Discord as well to check out the bets as the weeks continue. Buddy, week 8's down in the books. We're into week 9. Our teams took some losses. How are you feeling?
Yeah, man, week 9 feels different now. You know, when it was a 16-game season, we were at the midway point. Now we're kind of halfway. We're past the halfway point here in the season now. It's going to be, we got some interesting matchups today. This is not one of the most entertaining weeks, but as we were talking about off camera, it's getting important. Teams winning or losing in these scenarios right now in this midseason. This is when teams start to make a run. But this is a really crucial time in the season.
Yeah, this is where it all becomes really important for everybody. And we're going to get into that, but first some news and notes. First, bye weeks this week. San Francisco and Pittsburgh are on a bye, so that's big for fantasy teams out there. Anthony Richardson has been benched in this game in favor of Joe Flacco. We're going to get into that and a whole lot more after he came out to the media and said that he was tired, so he benched himself. TJ Hawkinson is set to make his season debut for the Vikings this week. Let's go. Deontay Johnson was just traded to the Ravens, which is a huge boost for this offense that has already played extremely well this season. Stephon Diggs is out for the remainder of the season with the torn ACL, which is brutal for the Texans. He was also having a hell of a season. Tyrone Tracy for the Giants is in concussion protocol this week following their game against the Steelers, so that's something to monitor if you have him in fantasy as well. Obviously, Anthony Richardson left the game. Christian Kirk is out for the year with the broken collarbone. Brian Thomas Jr. is out for 2 to 4 weeks with a chest and rib injury. And Gabe Davis is injured with the shoulder, but he should be back to play in this one, but still a lot of injuries for Jacksonville. Jordan Love has a groin strain and is questionable to play this week, but obviously he's going to do his best, especially as they play the Lions. And Jordan Mason re-aggravated the shoulder he originally injured in Week 6. Those are some of the big ones. DK Metcalf is also expected to be back in this game, which is a huge boost for the Seattle Seahawks offense, which struggled mightily last week against the Bills. That's it. It was a mouthful as always. There's always plenty going on. Now we get to go into our blowouts, and Jack was right. These are not sexy. And kicking off this not-so-sexy category, we have the New England Patriots making their way to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Titans are favoring this by -3.5, over under here of 38. How are you feeling, buddy?
Yeah, 2-6 team and a 1-6 team. We are looking at this as, a possible blowout for the Titans. I know the Patriots got the win against the Jets last week, but the Titans look to get something figured out. It was weird. I will like to go with New England here because they got that win. They're on the road. Tennessee is just a mess right now. Calvin Ridley, 10 targets last week. I believe he finished with 10, 143. Didn't see that coming, but Drake May hurt. It's weird. I'll take New England just as a dog play, but what are you feeling? Because this one, as you said, is not sexy.
I'm going with the Patriots. I don't like the Titans. Mason Rudolph is the better quarterback, and it's still struggling, and I'm sick of the Will Levis experiment, so yeah. I'm locking in the Patriots. I trust them. Moving this right along, we have the Miami Dolphins making their way to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Bills are favoring this one, -6 with an over-under here of 49.5. Obviously, Tua last week brought a little bit of juice to this Miami's team, but they couldn't get the win. How are you feeling up against the Buffalo Bills? Josh Allen playing like an MVP.
Yeah, he's been so great this year. The Bills have really just been running this whole year pretty much after Josh does his thing in the first half. Miami got a little bit of life last week. We saw 2 touchdowns from Mostert. We saw a little bit more involvement from Hill and Waddle, which I was saying last week was criminal. They weren't more involved. Now it's just that they're 2-5. They got their quarterback back. There's really no more excuses here. I expect a big game from Achane. He plays well when Tua plays, but give me Buffalo in this one at home, no problem.
Yeah, I'm locking in Buffalo. I just think they're the better team overall from offensively and defensively. I was worried about them all offseason. I kept talking about it. And Josh Allen has made me just not have to worry about them whatsoever. I think he's the clear MVP favorite right now. I don't think Patrick Holmes should even be remotely in that topic of conversation, considering how he's playing. Keon Coleman's been great, over 70 yards the last 2 weeks, and is growing into this role more and more as a wide receiver one. I'm really excited. I do think this will be a high-scoring game, or high-scoring-ish, so I'll comfortably take the over on 49.5. But I do think that this is all Bills all day. They also are going to have Bills Mafia backing them up. I like them in this one. Moving this right along, We have the Washington Commanders making their way to New York to take on the Giants. Washington is favoring this by -3.5 with an over-under here of 43. Does Daniel Jones finally throw a passing touchdown in New York, buddy?
Probably not, to be honest. The confidence has to be low after that Steelers loss last night with probably the worst 2-point conversion a lot of people have seen. And I'm not talking about the throw or the fact of tackle. I'm talking about the 4 offensive linemen they had lined up out of nowhere who are looking backwards while the play is getting snapped. Washington coming off that Hail Mary, it's going to be hard to bet against them, whoever they're playing. And the Giants kind of seems a little bit like open season right now. Defense, again, playing well, but Washington is hot. Jaden Daniels, people are talking about him as an MVP. I think he's Rookie of the Year right now, but just want to shout out Tyrone Tracy, 20 carries, 140 yards last week.
Yeah, the Giants are going to be missing him this week if he's not able to suit up in that concussion protocol. Commanders won the game when they met earlier this year in September. I have to go with them once again. I just think that they're playing really well offensively and defensively. Banged up Jaden Daniels last week was still able to get it all done. He's looking great. I'm in the same boat as you. I think he's locked for offensive of the year candidate. MVP still at the moment, despite a spectacular season. Still a little bit of a stretch just because the touchdown volume isn't quite there that we want to see traditionally from MVPs, or that we have seen traditionally from MVPs. So just something to keep in mind. And I think he can get to that caliber of player.
For sure.
Just put that out there. I'm not saying that this guy can't do that. But I'm liking Washington this week. The Giants 2-point conversion, and I saw this online, and it was so true. It reminded me of the Indianapolis Colts fake punt all those years ago. So I think the Giants might have reclaimed or took to claim over the worst play in NFL history for what are we doing right now? Daniel Jones was pissed at that. It was not the game that you want to see from New York.
It was a not top 10 play.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Honestly, I feel sorry for all the Giants fans out there. Let's move this right along. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars making their way to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Eagles favored this by -7.5 with an over-under here of 45.5. Now, I mentioned all the injuries to Jacksonville. I got to lock in Philly, man. I'm just going to say that right now. I just think that they're playing too well. I think they figured out their groove again, and the defense looks solid with Cooper DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell just holding it down back there, the two rookies.
Yeah, and, this is a blowout for a reason. The records are lopsided. The injuries for Jacksonville, like you said, are terrible. Jalen Hurts, 3 touchdowns last week on the ground, and a bomb to Devonta Smith. He has had 2+ rushing touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. I think he'll get another one this week just for fun. I expect a big game from Saquon this week. I think the Eagles will be up. Take them to 7.5. I would stay away from the over-under in this game, but if I had to choose, I'd probably choose the under just because I don't know if Jacksonville is going to be able to hold up.
Yeah, it feels like it might be one of those 31-10 games or 28-10 games where it just doesn't. The offense and defense is always doing enough where the game feels out of hand for Jacksonville, but the score isn't 40s to 20s or something, So I totally agree with that. All right, let's keep this moving right along. We got the New Orleans Saints making their way to Carolina, take on the Panthers. New Orleans turn this by -7 over under here, 43.5. Good news for New Orleans fans out there. Derek Carr has returned. He'll be back in this week, and that's a great matchup against the Panthers. So I'm taking the Saints because of that alone.
Yeah, taking the Saints. I believe Olave should be back this week. I know he's been banged up the last couple weeks. Definitely going to get Kamara back in his flow. I would say also on the Panther side, you could start Chuba Hubbard this week, but after the trade with Deontay Johnson, that's interesting. I think the Panthers are in for another huge loss. New Orleans by 7 if Derek Carr is playing like a champ like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think you could even take him by 10. Moving this along, we have the Las Vegas Raiders making their way to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Bengals are favored this by -7.5, over under here of 46.5. Jamar Chase leads the league in receiving yards. Buddy, how are you feeling? Gardner Minshew is still going to be the starting quarterback because Aiden O'Connell is injured.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bengals at home. They are 3-5 in a tough division right now. Las Vegas does not look like they're going to be able to get back on track this season, kind of looking like a classic Raiders team. Outside the fact that Brock Bowers is leading the NFL in receptions right now at 52, who also, Mr. Brock Bowers, needed a touchdown to hit our National Tight Ends Day parlay last week. We got 3 out of 4, so shout out to anyone who wrote on that. But the Bengals, they're too good. Everything is set for them up in this matchup to go 4-5 at the end of the week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this offense is going to be too much for this Raiders defense. I feel bad for all the Vegas fans out there. It's just been another year of brutality. It seems like no matter what they're doing, they can never get it right. That 10-6 season that was, in the 2010s just feels so long ago. I just feel so bad. And the Chiefs just winning Super Bowls in your division right in front of your face.
It's and the Broncos before that.
Yeah, and it's just tough out there in the AFC West. So I'm feeling for them. Let's move this along into our meh category, and let's kick it off with a Thursday night football match when the Houston Texans make their way to New York to take on the Jets. Jets are favored in this one by -1.5, over under here at 42. And at this point, you have to ask, was Robert Saleh really the problem, considering that they still haven't won a game and they don't really look any better? They actually look worse.
Yeah, I said last week, no more Aaron Rodgers, friends. I'm happy they went a whole week without picking up Jordy Nelson, but it's no joke now. 2-6 is absolutely no joke. You're playing on a short week after a close loss with a division rival. Can't be feeling good, but at least you're at home. Texans have to travel. They got no Diggs, and they have no Nico. So everyone would be like, why would you take the Houston Texans? Because they're so deep, man. They got John Mechie. They got, Dalton Schultz. They still have Joe Mixon, one of the top running backs this year. And they're 6-2. They're going to be 7-2 at the end. Jets are going to be 2-7. Not going to be pretty.
Yeah, it's over for the Jets. It's time to pack in. We talked about last week. You don't win against the Patriots. It's over. We found a stat. New York Jets fans, all the 2-6 teams out there, sorry for this one, but since 1966 Super Bowl era, only 2 teams out of 186 have made the postseason, starting the season at 2-6. So, you're not looking at the playoffs right now if you're a Jets fan, if you're any of these 2-6 teams, according to history and according to statistics. But, I mean, it's over for the Jets. It's done. The experiment's over. Rodgers didn't work. He's all banged up. His legacy is going to get a little bit smeared because of this, I think. And honestly, you got to wonder if he's also a little bit of the problem more so than anybody else. Just all the wants in the contract, how much money he wants, how easy he wants to be able to get out of it for himself, all the players he's brought in, the rumors of him and Saleh, despite both them saying that wasn't true. It's feeling like this experiment is over, and you have to wonder, what's next? They were better last year with Zach Wilson than they are right now with Aaron Rodgers. Not something I was expecting to say in 2024.
Yeah. We're going to soundbite that one.
Easily.
That's crazy stuff.
That is fucking crazy. All right, move this along. We have the Los Angeles Chargers make their way to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Chargers favored this one -2, over under here of 42.5. One just also has to wonder, is Jameis Winston really good at football, and is Deshaun Watson really bad at football? What's going on here?
Is he really good at half quoting movies? Absolutely. Is he good at comeback winning drives? You bet your ass. Because he did it last week. He did it vintage. We think about him doing what he did last week when they played Auburn in the national championship.
Goddamn
10
right.
years ago. It's crazy stuff. So, Jameis, they're hot right now. They're 2-6. Like we said, not a great chance to make the playoffs, but definitely, great time for him to make a little name for himself out there in Cleveland. I'm taking the Chargers, though, here, despite the Jameis hype. Cleveland, the Chargers are 4-3. They lose this game, they're 4-4. So they're on the road. They got to travel, which I never really liked, but I'm expecting a big game from Dobbins. And Ladd McConkey, got to give him a shout out because we gave him one a couple weeks ago, but the kid has finally broken out.
Yeah, he's looking great. He's looking like the true wide receiver one. Honestly, I was really worried about the Chargers as a team, what they would do. I didn't think that they'd get to 4 wins, or if they did on the season, that they'd get it at this early on. I don't, everybody was like, Herbert's no longer a top quarterback because of this. Honestly, what I think that this showed us this season, the stats might not be amazing. The touchdowns aren't there, all these kinds of things, and I totally get that. But what they're able to do is win games. He's able to go out and play pretty well. He moves the ball downfield. This is everything that you want for a team that doesn't have a true wide receiver one. And arguably, even to an extent, doesn't really have a true pass catcher. Ladd McConkey shows up a game here and there. I think he's going to be the guy going forward for this season and for the future for Herbert.
Yeah.
But at this point and for the rest of the season, it's still going to be inconsistent. Quinn Johnson had 2 touchdowns in the opening 4 weeks. Everybody was start him. Oh my God, he's a fantasy pickup. Where's that been? It's not great.
Now it's Will Dissly too. It's
right?
You never know.
So this is all good news for Chargers going forward and for Justin Herbert and his ability. So, like, is he top 10 right now? No, but is he top 10 talent-wise? Absolutely.
Sure.
I would take him over Trevor Lawrence right now, for sure. Right? Like, these kinds of things.
True.
All this being said, I am going to go with Cleveland. I do just like them for this team. I think they have a lot of momentum going on.
Yeah,
Jameis
like that Jameis hype.
Yeah, I'm on the Jameis hype. They're at home. This team, like, they're good. And it just seemed like they were a quarterback away from holding them back because Winston has a better grasp of Kevin Stefanski's system, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're just seeing right now. And honestly, it's going to work out in their favor, I think, for this game because the Chargers aren't necessarily like the scariest team around, so it's very beatable. Yeah. I like it. I like Cleveland this. They need something, all right? They got Bronny and LeBron playing them this week. They got to get the win also, all right?
I know, they're ready for that. Moving on.
Moving on, man, all right? Gotta just remember that. We have the Dallas Cowboys making their way to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Falcons favored in this one, -3.5, over under here at 52. Atlanta hasn't lost in the division yet. I just want to put that up there. Cowboys are the kings of garbage, and I hate them, and so do you. How are you feeling?
I'm taking the Falcons at home. I'm taking them -3. This Cowboys team has a non-existent run game. They have a non-existent secondary, and it's just becoming a problem. The coaching decisions, just by McCarthy, have been awful. So you got to just give it to them there. I'm going to give the Falcons their heads up here with, like, it's just, dude, they're 5-3. They haven't lost. They got an easy division, just like Buffalo. They got to lock it up this week at home. So Falcons all the way. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, start them all.
I'm here for it as well. I'll take the Falcons. Also, like you just said, they're in a very easy division. They're probably going to take over the division. If Tampa Bay didn't have all those injuries, I think we might be
We're
saying
having a
Tampa
little battle
Bay,
there, yeah.
Baker looks also pretty good, but
Pretty
Chris Godwin playing in garbage time, losing his knee, bad decision by Todd Bowles. But it's Falcons. We talked about this. Like, the Cowboys did nothing. They did absolutely nothing this entire offseason. They made no big signings. They did nothing to their offense in terms of playmakers until the 6th round when it came to the draft. They did nothing. And this is what happens when you do nothing. Your team doesn't get better. You're not like, they weren't the Chiefs. They weren't the Lions. They weren't the 49ers that didn't need to make a flashy move in the offseason because they had all their pieces, right?
Yeah.
The Cowboys were missing pieces, and you waited, and you waited, and you waited on signing your quarterback. You didn't sign Derrick Henry. You didn't sign anybody. You cash-strapped yourself. This is what happens. Like, you played yourself, Jerry Jones. I'm sorry. Now you get to sit in it. Now you get to just sit and stew in Jerry's world, because it's a steaming pile of shit right now, and I feel bad for all the Cowboys fans, but not really, because it's never your year, and every year you think it is, so get over it. This is what happens. Moving along, Chicago Bears going to Arizona to take on the Cardinals, over under here at 44.5. Kyler Murray got the big win. How are you feeling in this one?
Yeah, Kyler, he overcame the COD release weekend, and he had an absolute game last week. The Bears obviously also had a great game last week, just unfortunate to be on the wrong side of a Hail Mary. But both of these teams, right now they're in competitive divisions. The Bears I don't see as, playoff like divisional, just because they're going to probably be a wild card team, if anything, just because the Vikings and the Lions are in their division. But the Cardinals are the top of the NFC West right now, and if they want to stay there, being 5-4 would be huge. I think that they could win. I think this is a huge opportunity for James Conner, Marvin Harrison. Trey McBride doesn't have a touchdown this week. I am going to throw Trey McBride anytime touchdown out there. I think that's a very solid play. But Arizona's at home, and Chicago's traveling.
Chicago, it was a little bit struggling for Caleb Williams last week. You could see that just in terms of his completion at 41%. I think that you have to be happy if you're a Bears fan, given everything that they've been able to do and everything they've been able to see. And honestly, their defense looks fairly good for the most part. So these are all really important things. I like Arizona in this game just because I think Kyler Williams has been pretty solid. Like we can all not like him for whatever reasons, but 67% of his passes have been completed, over 1,600 yards, 11 and 3 touchdown to interception ratio. He's running the ball really well. He's scoring these big touchdowns with his feet. He's moving the ball downfield. Would love to see them get that second playmaker outside of Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
And I really think this offense will take off, and I keep saying that. But I like them in this one. They're at home. Let's see if they can build on it. Let's keep this moving. Sunday Night Football. This game was flexed to Sunday Night Football, and I guess looking at the week, it does kind of make sense. But we have the Indianapolis Colts making their way to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Vikings are favored this by -5 with an over-under here of 46.5. This could have been in the blowout category, but it didn't feel right because of the Vikings. How are you feeling in this one?
Yeah, with the Vikings, they got, like we said, off camera. They had a great game last week. A bad face mask call, and the fact that nobody at all knew that Puka and Kupp were going to be in that game. Definitely an unexpected thing when you're playing on a short week like that. But I will say, Indianapolis, they're a dumpster fire. They are not good unless they're throwing one good pass deep right now. They're starting Flacco this week, as you said in the news and notes. Anthony Richardson, we've gotten into this. I'm sure everybody's sick of it, but took a playoff. Wanted to take rest. That's fine. You're a human guy, but the fact is, other guys are just not taking rest. They're in very much distraction with that storyline this week. Not a lot of upside on their team outside of Jonathan Taylor, so I'm taking the Vikings. They're a well-oiled machine, and they started 5-0. They're 5-2. They do not want to be 5-3. I think Jefferson 100 yards probably going to be my favorite thing going into this one for sure.
Yeah, so Stephon Gilmore playing against his former team. Fun fact about that. But the Richardson thing, I watched the Micah Parsons, Trevon Diggs, if you guys haven't. I can't remember who says it, but they basically just said, like, he should have lied. And he absolutely should have. This is like the moment where, like, you should have lied to the media. You should have lied to everybody. It shouldn't have come out that you were tired and they had to take a couple plays off and that you benched yourself. You said you benched yourself. These things don't look good as the franchise quarterback. It doesn't make you look like a better player because you're telling the truth. It just didn't look great for him, honestly, as a whole. And it makes sense that they're going to bench him for that. I think one of our friends of the show said it best. If you're going to bench yourself, then we'll bench you as well. Like, it's that simple. And I couldn't agree with that more. As for the Vikings, 5-0, you're now 5-2. We didn't expect Puka. We didn't expect Kupp. We've been burned the last 2 weeks with Kieran Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's see what we can do against Jonathan Taylor. My uncles, all Minnesota fans, my entire family, we're defeatists, Been defeated since 1961 when we were founded. That's how we feel. But I will say, like, we have an easy-ish schedule. I mentioned last week. We get the Colts, we get the Jags, we get the Titans, we get the Bears, then we get the Cardinals. These are very winnable games for this Vikings team. We've been burned defensively. Let's get back on track. We need some Blake Cashman back in there from that frickin' turf toe, which is the worst injury in the world.
Turf toe.
All right?
Does it even exist?
Does it? And it's so irksome. Let's get back. We're at home. It's Sunday Night Football. Let's just do what we do best. I agree. JJ over 100 yards. I like him also for a touchdown this time.
For sure.
Let's go, Vikings. Let's get back on track. I'm tripling down on them this week. I will say, though, it also just slightly feel like a trap game with Joe Flacco coming in for this. So if we lose...
So watch for a live bet on the Colts.
Yeah. Would it be surprised if... Yeah. Would it be surprised if we lost? Moving this along, Monday Night Football now. Tampa Bay Buccaneers making their way to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Should have had this one in the blowout category. Didn't see the over-under or the spread here. Spread's 9.5. Over under here, 46. I'm locking in Kansas City, and honestly, it just has to do with injuries for Tampa Bay. It just has to do with injuries.
This would be
such a good game.
Hell of a game.
Would be game of the week, honestly. Like what? Oh, Mike fell. Would be such a good Monday Night Football game.
No Evans, no Godwin, and Hopkins is now on the other side. We both, I had a flight the other day. I said, should I pick up DeAndre Hopkins? I got off the flight. He was already picked up and on the Chiefs. And that's just how it goes sometimes. But, yeah, the Chiefs at home, they're undefeated. They are unstoppable on their defense right now. They're just going to shut down this Tampa run game. Shout out to Kate Otten last week. Great 29 points in PPR scoring for Tampa. He's definitely going to be Baker's favorite guy this year. But it doesn't matter. DeAndre Hopkins is in Kansas City, and I'm taking the Chiefs as well.
Yeah, I also just want to say one thing about the Chiefs. That defense is their new identity because Patrick
Yes.
Mahomes is just not looking like Patrick Mahomes. And
He is
I say
killing
that as a
Chauncey's dynasty
dynasty.
team.
I said as a dynasty. I benched Patrick Mahomes last week for Bo Nix, and I got damn near 30 points. I haven't sniffed 20 all season with Patrick Mahomes, and yet 1 week with the rookie quarterback, and I'm sniffing 30. And I lost, and I've never felt more good about a loss in my life. Just brutal. I'm getting hurt in fantasy from Patrick Mahomes. If it wasn't Dynasty, drop his ass. Moving along to the games of the week. Denver Broncos making their way to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Baltimore's favored in this one by -9.5. Over under here, 45.5. Now, this also might be considered a blowout due to the spread, but quite honestly, this Broncos team is a much better team than people are giving it credit for. Jack, break it down for us.
Yeah, you mentioned a guy that you just started in fantasy, Bo Nix, QB 10 in fantasy on the year. That means he is top 10. He is a startable quarterback in almost every format, and he has the second best matchup this week for quarterbacks. The Ravens, they got Derrick Henry, they got Lamar Jackson, but their biggest problem, why they have those 3 losses, is they have the third worst passing yards allowed and the worst, QB rating allowed. So this is a great matchup for, Bo Nix. Javonte Williams is starting to get set. But I will say I'm taking the Ravens at home. But as we go forward, the Denver Broncos are 5-3. They're another team that could sneak right into the wild card without us even thinking about it. And they have a good defense. But Baltimore last week, as we said before, they got the bad end of the Jameis stick last week and gave up a huge game-winning drive there and a huge touchdown.
Yep, so I do also, live breaking news, the Vikings just made a trade. We are acquiring Cam Robinson, the offensive tackle, for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
No way, nice.
That comes
shout out Vikings, shout out Cam Robinson.
Yeah, that comes after news of Christian Darrisaw. One of the best tackles in the league. Yeah. One of the highest paid. It's going to be out for the year. So, yeah. Just want to keep. No, I know. Back to the Broncos, Ravens. Sorry, I got lost in my Minnesota team. Still purple though. Brutal loss to the Browns. Couldn't agree with you more. Stat out there that is actually a little bit terrifying. I think if you're a Ravens fan, do you know that the Ravens have the most dropped interceptions in the NFL at 13? That includes the Kyle Hamilton potential game-winning or game-saving interception last week.
Yeah.
So. The secondary for this Ravens team is bleeding yards. They're ranked 27th in the league. They're giving up a ton of points to the fantasy and yards to the quarterback. So to your point, this is a Bo Nix pretty good game matchup wise, especially if the offensive line is able to hold against a pretty good defense. The thing for me, and they got the trade for Deontay Johnson, which I think only helps out this offense. We're seeing a lot from Lamar Jackson. He's 5th right now in the NFL in passing yards. He's looking great as he's moving the ball downfield. But they're so good because they're so balanced right now, and what they're able we were joking around about it last week from fantasy. It's kind of funny that you can go 11-74-1 with Derrick Henry, and you're still putting up 22 points. 11 carries to Derrick Henry last week. They barely need to use him. They were passing more than anything.
Yeah,
that's a scary stat. And now you get Deontay Johnson in. This Ravens team, I'm locking them in this week, and I think that they're looking like Super Bowl favorites, if not for sure AFC conference favorites. They're looking really good right now. Speaking of teams that are looking really good, we're moving to the NFC in this one because we have the Detroit Lions making their way to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Lions are favored in this one by -3.5 with an over-under here of 48.5. Now again, Jordan Love is injured, something to monitor right now. I do think he's going to end up starting just because of how big this game is. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think he's going to end up starting. Josh Jacobs the last 2 weeks has been great. Romeo Doubs has kind of solidified himself stat-wise as the number 1 receiver there, but they still have Jaden Reed. Tucker Kraft, huge shout-out with him, getting Chauncey's touchdown last week for the anytime touchdowns. But Detroit 3.5 seems a little easy, especially if Love's banged up. I do not think the Packers are going to be capable of controlling the clock the same way that Detroit has been. Detroit's kind of coming off that easy win. Packers definitely going to smack him in the face. I'm taking the over at 48.5. Both of these quarterbacks over 1.5 passing touchdowns for sure. This is going to be a great game, but I'm taking Detroit.
I'll go Green Bay, and I think I think for me, it comes down to the defense right now. The Packers look really good. This is a chance for them to also become number one in the division, shake it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And if imagine this, you could have the Lions, Packers, and Packers would be 7-2, but you could almost have 3-6-2 teams right now in the NFC North.
Yeah.
So it becomes big for me. I'm looking at this. Packers lost this game 34-20 at the start of the season. It didn't look great. They played pretty poorly. Goff is 5-2 against the Packers in the regular season currently. You got embarrassed by the Vikings earlier this year when they came to town, and you lost because of a lot of interceptions. They don't have Aiden Hutchinson. They're still getting really good pressure. You got to not get embarrassed like that, so I have to go with Green Bay. It's just such an important game right now. It's divisional. It's so important right now in the mid part of the season. They're both 6-1, 6-2. They're neck and neck right now. This division's getting tighter and tighter. The Bears are still 4-3. They're not really out of contention yet. They're only one loss away behind a few of these teams. I like Green Bay. They're at home. Let's see what the Pack can do. Let's see if they'll go Pack go. Yeah. Keeping this moving right along. We have the Los Angeles Rams making their way to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Rams are favoring this one by -1 with an over/under here of 40.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, like we said with the Vikings game last week, Thursday Night Football, Puka's back and Cooper Kupp is back, and that just bodes well for the Rams offense. They are now 4-4. It is a very interesting divisional race with them, the Cardinals, the Niners, and the Seahawks who they're playing now. Seahawks need to get this win, but I like LA on the road. I think that they're just going to get back to it. And Kyron Williams, 25 touchdowns in his last 19 games. I think they're going to be able to run on Seattle's defense. Seattle, obviously, tough sledding last week. Had a bad fumble snap. Anybody with a Kenneth Walker prop definitely got killed because he lost 20 yards just picking the ball up. But the Rams, they are a well-oiled machine right now, and McVay plays really well in the division. So I'm going to take the Rams.
Yeah, I got to go with the Rams as well. I want to take the Seahawks because of that defense. But they lost to the Bills despite the turnover. Yeah. It just wasn't – they just didn't look great. And honestly, the Rams, they looked like their week one team. Like, they looked really good. I mean, when you get Puka and you get Kupp, and they're an unstoppable duo when they're both on the field together. I miswrote it. The Rams are 3-4 and the Seahawks are 4-4. The Cardinals are 4-4 and the 49ers are 4-4. We're talking about divisional wins and divisional wins right now in the season. If the Rams get to 4-4, they beat the Seahawks. The Seahawks get to 4-5. It shakes it all up, and you get the 49ers on a bye right now. So it's a team that you don't need to worry about for this week. And then let's say the Cardinals also lose. All of a sudden, the Rams creep up there as top of the division in the NFC West, and they have a home playoff game. And so, again, like
this is going to be the most interesting development. These last two games, these last two divisions, NFC North, NFC West. This is like we said at the beginning of the video. This is when stuff is getting real. Not for
they're getting tight. It's funny because it's so tight for two different reasons. One group because they're both everyone's hovering around 500. Another because it's like we all got 2 to 3 losses, so you can't afford to lose another one.
You can't.
This is a good games of the week. Bad overall week though for some matchups. That's all the time that I got. That's all the time that we got. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, guys, thank you guys so much. Hopefully we were able to make this a little more entertaining for week 9 for you. A lot of props, a lot of things coming in the Discord. Make sure to check us out on YouTube and Spotify if you're on the go. Make sure to check us out as well on Instagram. All the updates are there with just saying no GWJS. Thank you guys for checking us out and enjoy the Sunday.
Enjoy.